There are 13 games left on the schedule for the Toronto Raptors as they attempt to make this playoff push here towards the end of the season. And I think there's one factor, probably bigger than most, down the stretch here that will really be pivotal in where the Raptors end up to end the year. And pitchforks down, please hear me out. It is Mr. Fred VanVleet. Now, what's up everybody, it's JJ Buckets. Told you what we're going to talk about today, so before I fully get into things, usual drill, just make sure you're leaving a like on the video. It makes a huge difference in the algorithm, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel as well. Plus, if you plan on doing any responsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below for today's sponsor. Now, Fred VanVleet has definitely been the most polarizing player out of anybody on the Raptors when it comes to fans this year. A lot of times it really feels like people either love him or hate him, and with his inconsistent play this year, I can understand where those feelings come from. And quite frankly, I think some of that also contributes to why I really do believe he is the most pivotal player for the Raptors down the stretch. And quite frankly, I really don't even think that's close, right? Now, I'm gonna want you to brace yourself for the scorching hot take here. Sarcastically, obviously. When your best players are playing well, your team is playing well. And in all of this, you know, in the inconsistency and the fan hate and whatever, Fred VanVleet is still one of the best players on your team. I'd probably argue he's a top 3 player on your team, and I really wouldn't go worse than that. So obviously, like, when you have, you know, your best players playing their best basketball, right? Again, scorching hot take, like, you're gonna win a lot of these games, and when they're not, you're gonna lose a lot of these games. And I think that's been very evident with Fred VanVleet and his play this year, right? When you look at the split stats of what Fred VanVleet looks like in wins versus in losses, there's some very notable contrasts there, right? So I think the big thing that really sticks out to me is the efficiency. Now, when you look at the field goal percentage, he is a little bit more efficient. It's not a big difference by any means, but he is a little bit more efficient. But I think the one that really stands out there when it comes to the efficiency of wins versus losses is 3-point percentage, right? Like, that's the big one there. And again, another scorching hot take here. The Raptors are not a good shooting team. They haven't been a good shooting team this year. And Fred VanVleet is still one of the best shooters on your team. So when he's dropping that 3-point shot, like, it obviously opens up so much for this team. And when he's not, that offense just looks bad because, well, I mean, there's so many levels and elements to, you know, what him hitting shots, especially from the perimeter, does for this offense in terms of opening up spacing, in terms of opening up passing opportunities, because defenses now have to pay more attention to him on the outside, and he has a chance to play his drive and kick game that he likes. Like, there's a lot of things that extra spacing from him shooting the ball well does for this offense. And again, like, I don't think it's a scorching hot take. Shooting wins basketball games in the modern NBA, and the Raptors have not been a good shooting team, and somehow in spite of that, they're still hovering, you know, just below 500. But it's also the reason why obviously they haven't been above 500 for most of this year, right? It's the shooting has been bad, and a big contributor to that has been the drop off in that department from Fred VanVleet. However, there are some very encouraging signs, I think, when it comes to this. I mean, I also do briefly want to touch upon the fact that Fred's defensive rating when it comes to, you know, the wins versus the losses is a big difference as well. Like, that one is genuinely night and day in terms of the rating. But the shooting thing, I think, is so big here. And the encouraging signs are Fred really is trending in the right direction in this department. Small sample size to this point, obviously. We only have 6 games in the month of March. But in the month of March, Fred VanVleet's numbers are looking damn good to start the month, right? So, if we're looking at March here, he's averaging a solid 19.5 points per game. The big one here being he's averaging 9.5 assists per game. And like I was talking about with the efficiency, 44% from the field, 42% from 3-point. Now, based on what I just said, I think it's very understandable why those are very encouraging signs for the team. And I think there's a lot of things that will be working towards Fred's favor going down the stretch here. In particular with the assist mark, I think it is such a big difference to have a good pick and roll partner for Fred VanVleet like Jakob Poeltl. I think Fred VanVleet is somebody that plays the pick and roll game very, very well when he has the right tandem for it. And having a big like Yak, I think, is going to make the world of a difference to him down the stretch. I think it already has. I think you've seen, again, from the small sample size, that Fred VanVleet looks better when he has that big to play off of, when he has that good partner in that pick and roll. And this is no knock on like obviously anybody else that's been on the Raptors, but like in the traditional sense of what you want your pick and roll to look like, Fred VanVleet and Jakob Poeltl is a very deadly and talented combo, right? And I think a lot of the times too, when you have the other pick and rolls, you know, whether it be with, you know, you're trying to run a pick and roll set with Scottie as the lead handler or with Pascal Siakam as the lead handler, a lot of the times the issues you can encounter in those scenarios is when you're running Scottie in that pick and roll or Pascal in that pick and roll, when you're getting those switches on the pick, it's guys that can usually defend either one of the players, right? That's kind of the issue there, right? Because if you're running a pick and roll, let's say it's a Scottie and Pascal pick and roll, for example, like the defender that's guarding Scottie can usually roughly, at least size-wise, match up with Pascal as well, right? And vice versa, whatever the situation they're being. But obviously, when you're playing it with Fred VanVleet and a big man, like when it comes to that switching action, obviously now you're suddenly putting the defense into situations where, you know, they're compromised a little bit more, right? When it comes to the defenders, the size, whatever, like it creates more room for mismatches for your offense to exploit, and that does make a big difference. And I think, you know, as time goes on, we will see that big difference, and hopefully, you know, in the future we will continue to see it on the Raptors, but that's a conversation for another day. Needless to say, like, all that I've talked about, I think, to this point really highlights the fact of Fred's importance to this team, not only all season long, but especially down the stretch here. I think, simply put, and I tweeted this out, I think, and when was it? Whenever it was the Nuggets and Raptors game, the game that they obviously won. When Fred is on and when Fred is playing well, I think that is truly when the Raptors play their best basketball. And when Fred is playing poorly, a lot of times the Raptors end up on the wrong end of it, right? And yeah, I think that's more or less the video for today. I know a lot of it can come off as stuff that should feel intuitive and stuff and information that it feels like should be easily comprehensible to anybody watching, but sometimes that really just doesn't seem to be the case. So I wanted to make the video anyways, and you folks can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about Fred VanVleet, and in terms of his role and his value to the Raptors moving forward as they wind down the season here? Comment everything below. Keep it respectful, hopefully, mostly. Yeah, that's pretty much been me. I'm just going to reiterate the usual drill that I always do at the end of these videos, and obviously at the start of these videos. If you're still watching and you enjoyed the video, like the video. It takes a second and makes genuinely a really big difference for me. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel as well. Usually good for one video a week. And yeah, that's pretty much been me. It's been JJ Buckets. It's been real, and I will see everybody next time.